about the fifth turn or so. It might be only four, but I think it's fifth. I've taken care of the income. Nobody had any trades they wanted to make. He had money he wanted to make, but he couldn't get anybody to give him anything of value for a merchant concession. And nobody wanted to contribute money. Getting influence doesn't seem particularly worthwhile in general. It's more expensive than, the money you'd spend on the persuasion, and you get to kind of keep that money if you succeed. He has a problem, though. He has two characters, both under attack, so he can't really defend them both with his money. Now, he does have a bonus, I think. He has this distract the opposition, which can cancel... No. That could cancel a real persuasion attempt, but I can't cancel the card play persuasion attempt. And it's the card play ones I'm really worried about. I don't feel like I have enough money to cover both of them. So I'm just going to have to hope nobody has a card, because otherwise I'm probably going to lose one of my important characters. And I'll also try to cover whoever's my most important character, who right now is actually Isagoras, if he survives, which is the problem. And by cover, I mean move the faction leader over there. The reason he's most important, well, it's hard to tell. This guy's probably more important because he has a couple of followers. He has a double and two single. This guy has two double popularity. He has a double and a single. So there's a lot of popularity up there for grab. One thing is I definitely want to cover one of these two because nobody can take him. Nobody put a cube on him. I'm not sure you're allowed to put a cube on the faction leader. But if you're not, that creates something of a problem. No, it can be any statesman. So you can put it on the faction leader in the hopes that he'll have to move off that faction leader. So then the way it stands is I can actually throw all my money here on Isagoras and ensure that, but then, yeah, nobody can take the other one. Now there is some possibility. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw 10 bucks on Isagoras. Hope that's enough. It may not be. And see where we go with that. Because I do have the 7-point bonus for loyalty. So I go up to a 14 loyalty. That's going to be tough for anyone to beat. The only person going for it's here. He has not a whole lot of influence. He's got a like an 11. So he's already at -3. And that extra 12 bucks on there, even if he has a card, he's probably pretty safe. So that seems like how I'm going to defend. And like I said, I think it's really hard to persuade people in this, but we may just see it happen. Not as good as I thought. I threw that 10 bucks back because if I want to move him to here, I can't throw the money there. I can only do one of those two: redistribute funds, change faction leader, sponsor events, or purchase a discard. Purchasing discards is an interesting option. It just feels like there's always other stuff, and 10 bucks is a lot for a card. Obviously, if you're getting a leader off the card, that might be pretty cool. And troops might be very interesting. He doesn't have any troops showing. That could be problematic. In fact, what we know is he's saving up for a possible coup, but he's not, I don't know. He's got enough money to trigger one of the cards, and that might be enough given that we just had a coup and got rid of a bunch of the coup cards. We'll see if anybody's buying cards. If nobody buys cards, we might feel very safe. Of course, all depends on who gets selection, how the victory points align. He might not know that some troop cards get pulled. Pass down over here. This guy's sort of a pseudo-aristocratic faction because he has an aristocrat. He has the swing vote, possibly. in the assembly. However, he can never actually become an aristocratic faction. Even if he collects a bunch of aristocrats, I don't believe it's possible. I think that he's always stuck as the farmers, even if he has no farmers. I find that a little distasteful in a certain way. I'm not quite sure that there's any easy solution for it, but something in my head sort of says, well, you know, if an aristocrat aligned himself with such a faction and was made the faction head, you kind of feel like, then you would become an aristocratic faction, which is of, I think, extreme importance when you hit the oligarchy, because any factions that aren't headed by an aristocrat have a significant disadvantage. It's only the aristocrats who are important, so being able to draw those is important. Of course, if everybody rushes over to the aristocrats, other people may be able to pull some good characters without any challenge by being the only farmer or the only merchant on the board. So what you probably would, what you might see is like 4 aristocrats, 1 farmer, and 1 merchant faction, and those other factions becoming quite large, but not necessarily terribly more viable, except in the sense that they might end up getting strategos cards put on them for various reasons. The most obvious being if I can see a number of reasons, but one of them is there might just not be enough people to not fill in some of the non-aristocrats with strategos cards. There's no reason, you don't have to, and all the aristocrats are going to be sitting on these, so you might be collecting more popularity and influence also that way. So there would be an interesting balance with that, and I think if I play this again, I may start tinkering around with those ideas. If I play it again solo, and I just haven't been getting chances to replay games, which is really a pity, because this is one I would want to dive into. I really do like the Republic of Rome style of play, and seeing new scenarios of it, I want to do more. Okay, so anyway, this time though I'm playing it by sticking to the rules here. I believe I can make him a faction leader. That just doesn't change me from being farmers. And let's see. I think I'm done with these guys. He threw a whole pile of money over here on this aristocrat because he's got the highest influence in oratory. It means he can't be easily taken away. I still have a pile of money. I'm actually very rich. And I set up a potential attack over here. Now, as long as the leader's there, that's not going to happen. But that's a serious threat that, that player has to cope with. Of course, he's not winning the game right now, but he has a lot of tokens. They're just not in the bank yet. So I think he has the most tokens available. And what that means is Orange, who did very well, or gold or whatever, off playing a couple of laws that really kind of screwed the democracy over in stages, to no real effect, because the oligarchy just said screw that shit. He would be able, I think our Archon's party over there is able to turn that around. Anyway, let's go on to the bottom half of the field for a second persuasion attempt here. Kaiman here is going to play a blackmail to try to catch Isagoras. And this will go at the bottom of the people deck, so it gets shuffled in even faster than discards would. The blackmail means he can't play money, and he also can't play his defense card here, which means he's got a defense of 7 plus 7 is 14, 16. Okay, well, I got 16 bucks right on him to begin with, but his influence and oratory comes to 8, 9, 10, 11. So I actually only need to spend 15 to get myself to a 10. I'm going to put that money over here on the blackmail attempt. Now, if this fails, the target loses influence and popularity equal to a die roll, which, you know, this is particularly devastating. Even if you don't succeed, this might be a useful card to just screw them over. But 10 is the highest you can go of any value. I have succeeded in taking this Strategos with his 2 popularity chits. And I guess I can take this back. I don't know, it's actually, it may still actually be on there, but I've gained him, I gained the money from the blackmail. I don't lose that. That goes in his pocket. He was being bribed, and this goes under the people deck. And we're getting close to adding another deck there. We're already in the second, well, third deck officially, but the second deck within the components that are currently available for the game. The third period. And now I'm going to look at 16. 16 is the oldest character of all, so he's about ready to die, which has some influence. Notably, what I may want to do is pull his funds off him because they're worth a lot. He has all my money on him. So I'm going to end up doing a redistribute funds, although I could get him some more popularity here. I could do sponsoring an event. $10 would get me another double popularity. Nobody can take him from me. Nobody else's cube is on him. Maybe? Money? Points? Hard to tell. We'll go for the money. Keep that in hand because that allows us to pull more people. That also changes the vote totals. His 1 oratory comes off here and goes here, which means he's at 7, which is ahead of what the other 2 players have. That still doesn't guarantee me anything because the Archon's still over here, and he can still game the system by voting last. I had a Hand of Death come up right after his turn, which is kind of fortunate because it killed him off right away. Points came up. He's now in 2nd place in victory points, and boom. You might say, well, was that kind of worth it? Yeah, I think it was. I didn't actually spend anything except for my action here to make a persuasion attempt, and I got myself 10 victory points out of that. That's pretty damn good because I got all the cash. Well, I spent the blackmail card. That's big. Anyway, another war shows up. La la la. We could actually go do this one. This one doesn't piss Persia off, so it's kind of safe. And does it do anything for us? Not really. Gets us $10, but you know, we can resolve it and get some popularity, which is kind of the reason for the wars, I guess. However, this guy's got something interesting, and I'm going to show you one of my little tricks to playing things solo. I, as a player, know that this guy has troops in his hand. I can't remember whether or not he should know whether or not he has those troops, nor whether or not he would remember. So on odds, he has a card that lets him steal cards from other players. On odds, he's going to use that against him. On evens, then I'm going to make another decision, which may involve playing that card against someone else, where it's not nearly as useful. Okay, it's an even. So now, I guess on a 1 through 4, I'm going to draw through from someone else. And this could just be mistaken, you know, thinking that you can get a card, thinking that someone else has a war card where they don't. Okay, so he's going to use this card. Indeed. Because he has crap in his hand for backroom deals. And this card will go at the bottom of the deck when I'm done. And let's see who he takes. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know. I probably don't want to go for him. He didn't seem to to do very well. Who did the coup? He did the coup, so we're pretty sure he doesn't have extra troops. So I'll go for one of the other three. And I get a 3, so I'm going to go for him. And now I look, and his cards suck. So I will take the stratagem, and I will pass him an Ecclesiast, which is actually not terrible for him because he's an aristocrat. He can actually use this, but it's certainly not what I wanted. I actually had the money stored up to be able to do troop stuff. I think this Invade Ionia should be here in the news deck, which probably meant it probably should have come up again, but whatever. Because I see these with the Delian League requirement, I don't think they can even happen. I don't think they can show up unless they meet their requirements, which means, well, I haven't had a victory against the Persians, so this shouldn't legitimately be even showing up as a card. As soon as it flips over, it gets discarded for no effect, which is fine. No, and I think the Death Head only takes place if that's in place, if the requirements are met. Anyway, on the last player. And he wants to try to figure out a way to get enough cash that he can play his 20 talent Thracian mercenaries. I want to go for this. What that means is, with 2 armed retainers on the board, I got kind of a disadvantage here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say Nicodemus here is, and I got my ordering all screwed up, he is the youngest, but Nicodemus is going to try to assassinate Cimon. This is in an attempt to get rid of Cimon's troops rather than anything else. I have no real desire to kill Cimon, although I don't mind. Plus he has a high leadership, which the other guy with troops does not have. So this is appealing. Now what I have to do for an assassination, wait, what happens if I'm caught? I lose 5. Yeah, that's fine. I don't care about losing those. I'm going to be going for a coup this turn. Okay, so, and now normally, like in Junta, you probably don't want to throw coups regularly. I mean, especially you're looking at this, hey, a couple of people are opposed to me and they have troops out showing. So this may not be the best turn for it, but I think we've pillaged everybody else's cards. Mine didn't get used, and now I have my good one available. I wish I could get both of them out, but I don't have that kind of money, and it's because I screwed up and should have had one of those 50-point ones instead. There's no question. I didn't realize that cost me $40. Okay, so in order to do the assassination, because there's troops, I have to roll twice. If the black die roll is 5 or 6, the leader dies. And if the green die roll is 1 through 3, I get caught. But I have to roll them twice. If the black die roll is not successful on the first, or I'm caught on the first roll, the target escapes. So there's a very low chance of this succeeding. But that's okay, because I'm going for the coup. So I did not get a 5 or 6, so it didn't succeed, but I didn't get caught either. So nothing too terrible. And I didn't do my persuasion attempt. My other option would be maybe to wait a turn and try to move this somewhere, but I think this is my best chance. Fortunately for my faction, I'm going to pull all my money off my characters because I got nothing better to do. I didn't have quite enough money to buy the troop card and pay $10 for one of the extra 50s that's in here. Nobody's been buying the people cards, but I'm going all out this turn. Definitely worth the $10 if I had it. I don't have it. And I have no easy way of raising that kind of cash. I guess I could take a purple counter. I have the extra money that I could have bought one of them. Oh, that might be worth, it might be worth having bought a single popularity instead, just in order to, we'll move the money. We're counting on, this being our real last chance to win the game, because with the oligarchy in place, we don't have access to the levers of power at all, which is why he went for it too. we enter the assembly, there's an interesting situation. He's still got the Archon. I think he has to be allowed to propose one law, one set of people before anyone can play an Ecclesiastes card or Ecclesia card, as I read it. Now, he could he could fail that, though, that first proposal, and then create another one. However, the way I'm used to playing this, almost everything is decided after a time. And that helps when I'm playing solo, but it's actually how generally the multiplayer games go, because there's no real limit to table talk. So as we're entering the phase, I talk to the red player, hey, or I might consider this, hey, you know, do we really want to keep splitting the government between the two of you? How about you and me take it because we have enough votes? Well, we actually don't, because he still has the advantage of Archon until the position's taken, which means he can defeat whatever votes we put forward unless we throw so much money that he doesn't want to, which isn't going to happen. The other question is it all that worthwhile to place the Ecclesia to grab the Basilius? Well, maybe, because then from then on, you have that voting tiebreaker. But Red's looking at it as, well, the two of us equal your votes, which means we're not going to get to pass anything unless we toss in some money. Therefore, things are a little closer and my position's a little bit more powerful the way things sit right now. And I'm more likely to keep being able to get things. You get another vote here and you don't have to even spend, and you can assign the government however you like. You don't need my support. Now, granted, nobody who holds the Archon really needs the support. The votes totals are so low that you can just use your money to force the votes over each time and make sure you keep control of the government. In Republic of Rome, that doesn't happen, and it wouldn't happen here much for the same reason it doesn't happen in Republic of Rome much, because normally there's all kinds of players, they have all kinds of votes, and if one person is trying to dominate the government in either democracy or in the other games of this type, all the other players' votes come up against them, and they basically will be forced to throw so much money in to keep power. They just can't keep it for more than a turn or two, just by brute force of cash. However, as long as I'm getting my fair share of the government, and I have more leaders than he does, I don't see a problem, honestly. Somebody who does see a problem, though. Unless I'm getting Polemark, I have no one who's going into battle. And I can keep taking Archon and getting influence and everything, but it's the desire to fight wars that kind of drives things here. And somebody could always force a war with one of the Ecclesiastes cards. How likely would they be to force it with me in charge? I don't know, but I probably wouldn't be too interested in defeating the war, depending on how things are set up. So, and there are wars that we can pursue here, for whatever reason. So, I need to keep Archon, otherwise I'll lose my power. So what I'm going to suggest is Archon, Polemark, and Basilius over here, with him getting one of the Strategos, and the other Strategos preferably going to people other than red. But we have to worry a little bit about victory points here. So blue can definitely keep getting Strategos. Yellow doesn't appear to be doing terribly well. He can keep getting them. White is doing fairly well. I'm not doing all that well, but I'm not doing terribly. I still have a lot of counters there. It's just my biggest ones got stolen, which sucked. And red is not doing all that well. So I wouldn't necessarily mind throwing the strategos on him either. So I can't see why he wouldn't accept this, and I don't think anybody's going to be able to defeat that kind of alignment. If I wanted to be really a dick, we're a little worried about him. He has troops on his card. We could send Smirtis, who we've assigned as a strategos, off to go lose a war. Which could we attack? Well, these all cause Persian hostility. I would rather win a war than lose a war. Hence, what are we going to do? Well, why did we make Smyrna? Oh, so what I'm going to suggest is, yeah, I think we'll send all the strategos, because part of the agreement with him is that he goes. Kaiman could have gone instead. Xanthippus, maybe we want a better chance. I certainly want to send my Polemarch. Unfortunately, this isn't that hard a war to win, which means what? I have a huge force. We could fight 2 wars, but I don't want to create Persian hostility for various reasons. I don't see a point to it. We would all be getting this, and none of us would get any influence. Unless only one leader goes, we're not going to get influence off of this. So that's fine. As long as we all get the popularity, it seems okay. I aligned the cards either to people who I don't mind getting popularity or who it's not that big a deal. Actually, we're not going to send Smirus. We just gave him an influence for no reason. Do we need to send Xanthippus? Maybe not. So that would be 3, 4 if just our 2 people went, and he has no reason to go. So that would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 to 3. That would give us +8. It's not that good. So we'll bring Xanthippus as well. That brings us up to 13. That's +10. That's pretty good. And we have to send 9 fleets as well to cover. I think that's 9. I'm not sure. Doesn't really matter. There can't be any naval losses. We just have to be able to cover it. Is there anything else for us to do here in the assembly phase? Hey, we could recall him from exile. I see no point to that. Yeah, I see no real reason to do anything except adjourn the assembly. I don't think anybody else has anything they want to do. Again, I just don't see much. The laws are all democratic laws, so they can't be played anymore. I don't know if there are any oligarchy laws, which means we will fight this. And we said we were at +10. We got to watch out for a 17 or a 7 though, because we got nobody who helps us with those DSs. And we get a 12, which puts us 22. We're victorious, so everybody's going to get some popularity. The state gets $10. Whoopee. So, kind of an interesting situation. Pale Yellow, for whatever reason, feels like they were doing okay, and they did not go for additional troops. They might have been throwing a coup this turn, which would throw him into a really weird position. Does he want to play his card? He'd probably hold on to it and see whether or not Yellow is winning his coup. But there were additional troops available. He picked up the big one with the thought of, well, I got nothing better to do than coups. But for whatever reason, he decided, I'm in favor of the government as it stands, and for some reason, even though I'm not getting much, I'm getting something. I'm getting strategos, but I'm not getting to go to the war. What the hell with that? Put me in charge of troops and then, give me an official position in the army, and then don't let me get any glory. Yeah, that's what coups are made of, isn't it? What is wrong with him? But this guy's plan had been all along to go for it, and so he managed to pick up an additional unit, a 50-pointer, which will help him quite a bit. And he is going to call the coup. This kind of has to be something where whoever calls it first gets it, because otherwise you'd have people trumping, you know. So for example, if he calls a coup, somebody else who's not in a bad shape might say, you know, I don't want to waste my troops on something that I can't win the game off of. Why don't I do it instead? I'm pretty good. You know, of course, if anybody's calling it, they're probably pretty good too. So we're going to sweep the board and set up another coup. Thought there were a surprisingly large number of troops. I forgot to pay for these guys. He owes 20. I paid for these guys, which was only 8. I'm just going to make sure he has, I know he has the cash, because he didn't have enough for the damn 40. He would have loved to do that. But it doesn't make much difference. This is still the biggest army on the board. I chose to put my leader on the armed retainers because I think that gives me the most chance of killing things. I wasn't expecting this many forces to show up. I don't know what I was expecting. There were 2 of them already out, and 1 additional showed up, which is not that unreasonable. The 1 additional that showed up is one of the 2 people who went before me. Maybe I shouldn't have done this with 2 people going before me, but he's been planning for it all turn. I wasn't really aware that he hadn't fallen below. He hadn't fallen further down in the victory point, well, in the influence game. And if he had lost his leader due to the assassination, he'd be lower, so that was a double bonus. Okay, so I get to move some forces and do some killing. And I'm going to open up with this, and let me see if there's coup information on here. There probably is. Nope, I don't see it, so, I mean, there might be, but I'm going to take this out of play then, and flip over here. And what do we need? We need a 4, 5, or 6, and I use the second die for the damage die. I am attacking at +1 because I've got a leader. I do not hit, so I don't. This would have killed it if I'd hit. That means I've got this one. I can afford to move him down and also attack at +1. And he too does not kill. He wouldn't. Dice were in the wrong order. Okay. That means who's next? Pink, gold. Now there was some question, did I want to play these this turn because this is the only time I get to play them? Yeah, that's a good question. You know what? I'm not sure, but he did it. The reason it's important that he did it is because this wouldn't have been in this stupid corner where it could get beat up if that was the case. But yeah, I mean, I might not really be that heavy on the idea of trying to defeat the coup right off the bat. Okay, and then white gets to go, and he gets to attack. He is at even, +1 for the leader, but -1 for being smaller. He gets a successful hit on that big old army. Great. We're going to see another failed coup here. And then the final one is the yellow. He will keep, I guess he'll pick on the big unit. I don't know. He needs a 5 or a 6 to hit it. But if we can wipe that out, then the coup's pretty much over. He does, would have killed it. Okay, so now we're back on here. What do I do? Well, I'll keep going with this little guy, I guess. I gotta be careful and not let something slip into there that could be bad. But right now I have to jump. There's nothing that gives you like a movement advantage or anything, so yeah. Did not hit. This big one. Might as well schwack the leader. The chance of killing the leader is worth something. Okay, we get a hit, we kill. That's awesome. And that means, I think this is just dead, but I don't remember. Just go back in the deck. Discard the card. I hope I've been doing that. I hope there's not a pile of troops in here. No, because I could have bought troops from the deck. Okay. So that was successful, but now we got a leader death chance, which 4 through 6, and that is that's Kaiman. Okay, so Kaiman does not die. He has no more troops, so we're just going to be putting him back in play, back where he was, in case the coup fails. Now, I did both of these, I believe, which means we go to gold. Can't slip into there. I've got to put myself in range to be attacked, and that could be very, very bad. And then yellow, who will continue to attack the big guys, because wiping them out is really important at this point. I get a hit. Not enough, I don't believe. What was the failure? Yeah, excuse me. Is equal to 2 times, is less than or equal to twice the number of clear cubes. Yeah, we wiped out the big one. That's not hard to kill units. So that will help tremendously. And now things are looking a lot worse over on his side. It is his turn. And nobody's got additional troops in hand. Well, he does. He just can't play them. He'll attack the one unit he can. He's at even. He gets a hit. And that does not kill. Which means we go to orange. He gets to swing back. This will be at +1. That's a hit. That's a kill. We wiped out another coup. I don't have to check for the leader death, because that leader is getting executed no matter what. And that was Xanthippus here. Xanthippus is in exile, just like he is. I rolled his death, it failed. I rolled his possible execution on a failure as well. That failed. I've got to get Xanthippus back on the board. He was number 23. He's a very young guy. And now he's going to have, we're going to give him 16 in place of that 23 so that we can use a light colored one on top. And he's out for 2 turns, which I believe puts him down there. And potentially available. The nice thing, his popularity does get scored. His other values all got destroyed. His money, his followers, everything like that. But his popularity does get scored, and he ends up giving them 7 popularity, which, you know, puts them on the board at least. I didn't lose all my points for him. I don't think I have a faction leader until I do a set faction leader. I'm not positive of that. Some of these games, the faction leader shows up automatically when you die. You pick a new one immediately. You get kind of a free pick when you lose a faction leader. I don't know if that's the case in this. I can look it up. But it's really a minor thing either way. Because if you don't place a faction leader, you've got a serious disadvantage. In fact, you probably do need to place it, because yeah, it probably does get automatically placed because your income goes down if you lose your faction leader marker. Compromise, it actually gets assigned to the oldest statesman, and it does happen when you get sent to exile. I wasn't sure that happened. I'm not sure if the exile is supposed to collect income. Jeez. Unfortunately, this is also in here. I mean, he's not supposed to have money while he leaves without money. I think he's just out of play in all ways. That he won't be collecting money. But that is not clearly stated that I see here, and I doubt that there's anywhere else it would be. So So that's the end of another turn and another coup. And you can see that didn't work out as well as it might have. But those 200 Scythian mercenaries, maybe they shouldn't have been in play until needed, because he's wasted his draw and 8 talents. And I could have kind of held on to them to see, hey, are we going to win anyway? And then had that in my pool of cards. He still has a big pile of troops. He just doesn't have the cash to fund them. That 20 kind of knocked him out. So we're seeing people, I was expecting a coup to kind of win the game in both of these cases, in the sense of, it seems like the easiest way to grab the victory at this point. But we're seeing the balance of all the other players makes it harder to do. And if people start pulling mercenaries from here, it becomes harder and harder for a coup to work if everybody's keeping their troops up. Now that's expensive. They're having to pay $10 each time they pull a force from there, plus any cost for the actual forces. Right now it's kind of interesting. I think this is the only force on the board. So now he's tempted. And I did move the troops. They don't have to go back to where they came from. And I'm like, wow, I kind of screwed up with this guy and gave him both the money and the troops. And he's due to die very soon. So that was probably an unwise choice. But yeah, he's probably looking forward to the idea of a coup now, depending on how things go. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, he is not the earliest person drawing a card, but he was second this turn. So as long as he can keep his influence low, he'll probably not fall too much lower. This guy may have dropped below him, though. And we could do a quick calculation and see at any time, but I'm not good at remembering to do things like that when it's important. Okay, after our income phase, you can see Athens is still kind of making money consistently, although our force pool is getting larger, so we're only making about half of what we actually pull in revenue. Still no need for people to donate money. Oh, I have a rules correction. Apparently on the plate or somewhere, when there's one influence given by one of these, you bottom out at one. Everybody gets one for it. I'm not too worried about that. But it's just something to keep in mind. But anyway, I had a hand of death, and that means we lost a person here. It wasn't his faction leader, so he doesn't get to use his exaggerated rumors. That Kaiman he's way up here. Why did I make him faction? Oh, I know why. Okay. I haven't read this card yet, but that revealed 21 here, which is him, unless he returns from exile. He's just like a starting character now, but, it does give a little bit more flexibility to that player. Now, what about this? Revolt of Helots is on the board. I'm sure it's not. It's from a different deck. The current leader loses popularity and a popularity marker. Wow. Athens cannot prosecute this war. Place this card with the war as a reminder. Well, it's not on the board, so it just goes in the discard pile. It'll come back around. He purchased a troop discard. Now, nobody knows for sure that's what it is. There are enough of the troop discards that there are that I don't know. I mean, I guess people could be counting and paying attention. That wouldn't be too hard to do. But you would have to remember between their turns, it's not likely that anybody knows exactly what card that you took. You're only allowed to inspect this during your own turn. So as long as you can't write these things down, I doubt that there would be a great deal of memory. He couldn't do a persuasion attempt because his cube's over here, and he kind of wants to leave it there. And he actually has to buy the card off money on a statesman. It's one of those things where you have to leave the cash out and available, which meant, so is persuasion for that matter. He could have used that money to get more chits, which might have been appealing, but he really is worried about the coup possibilities now. He sees there's one player who has troops. He wants to make sure that he has some too, that we're not going to see, coup fatigue cause a coup to succeed. My excitement about the coups, and I really do have some. I know it's not always obvious that I have any excitement about anything, but I think that has caused me to be, along with an initial evaluation that, hey, I can just win the game with this fairly easily, but it's caused me to maybe have a rosier view of the coups than is actually the case. As this begins hammering out and troop cards are beginning to, show up in here and then be bought by the powers that be, it's starting to feel more like the Republic of Rome situation, which is, except in extraordinary circumstances, you're probably not going to be handing someone enough of an army to take Rome. Here, as long as the players are kind of aware and are trying to prevent someone else from winning a coup, no one's going to probably get away with it. Some of the cards are one use only, some of them get killed in the coups, so you got to be careful. Right now, it feels like Athens doesn't have a lot of forces in the streets, so I'm a little worried. If somebody gets a good first draw, they might be able to throw a coup. And that's one reason that he wants to keep the government working. He's one of the aristocrats. It's in his favor. Careful, the 10 tribes slipped into the news discard. That would be somewhat confusing at the very least. I also drew, and I caused too many deaths here. I'm not going to reverse it. But the Hand of Time only takes effect if the card was going to take effect, and I think there have been at least a couple of cases where the Hand of Time has taken effect without the card. We just had one here. I don't want to rewind it. I kind of like a lot of deaths, so it might be okay. But especially since we have gotten too many people cards in the deck too early. And this doesn't have to happen this way, but because all the oligarchy cards got placed in there, that's why we're still on the starter deck of people, but we're already on the second deck of news. We may end up in a place, and I'll try to remember if that's the case, where I've killed off too many people, and I can't really go through the deck. I really should have unwound this one. I think this is the third death that should not have happened. No, second death that shouldn't have happened. Because this one should have happened. And this one's Corinthian skirmishers. We no longer have the Spartans available. That's going to make the Persian Wars almost impossible. And we're just not going to want to fight them, I think. We're going to remain a different Athens, This is going to be a non-imperial Athens, I think. Of course, if we were playing with the totally non-co-op victory conditions, in which it's not even, in which there's no way to interpret it except that some people can win the game by ending it. Some people would try to do that. They would try to create a situation where they would get a victory through the fall of Athens. And that might be a lot of people, actually, because if you're close here and maybe have a little edge here, or if you have the victory here but you think maybe the other person might not draw very well or whatever, you might be tempted to take a chance because you figure, well, I have maybe a 50 or 30% chance of winning right off the bat with this, especially if you don't think you can win off a coup. For good or bad, I don't know. Certainly early in the game, it really disturbed me. Now, if you're playing with semi-co-op, but with the idea that the person, anybody who didn't win the game is a loser and is on an equal footing with all the losers if everybody loses. Well, in that case, you still have kind of an unfair mechanism, which is, or what I believe is a generally a historical mechanism, which is that someone can try to unbalance the game because, you know what, I'm not going to win anyway, and I would rather everybody lose than I be among 5 losers or something like that. Certainly the last place player has something of an argument in that place because they kind of did lose the game. They placed worst, you know, in any condition. But if you have no chance of winning, you know, what's the difference between, if you see winning and losing this way, what's the difference between losing by playing it out and losing, you know, by ending the game early and being able to go on to something else? Now, of course, you might just be enjoying the history of the game, etc., in which case you can count that into your metadata for whether or not you're going to keep playing. God, I'm losing track of where I am, though. Yeah, so our Athens is in a much, much worse position at this point, and I'm on this player's turn. He's seen a couple of players draw cards, I believe. Yeah, the troops do. Draw cards out of the pile. And he doesn't think a coup is very likely. So he's, again, unable to do a persuasion because he's got the marker over somewhere where it's just not going to work. Doesn't really want to move it. I like the idea of keeping things covered here because that weakens the aristocrats as long as somebody's got their cards covered. Somebody ought to cover his card, but he's got a pile of cash on there. But I paid $10 to get a double popularity because I'm kind of not doing all that well compared to other people. Now I have a lot in the pipeline, so I may have a chance as long as I rely on other people to defend Athens from internal disorder. I need to reverse that last error because I really felt like I should have not taken that last one. I got a colonization card. This had a Hand of Time. I did not trigger this one. And I feel like I'm about even. I think I'm 1 ahead of the game, but I'm not going to fix that. And that one didn't just happen. But this one, yeah, since it happened in the same turn. This guy did not buy troops. Instead, he also bought a popularity counter because he's doing pretty poorly, he thinks. Well, maybe not that poorly. He's got a lot of points in the bank. But again, he's like, a couple of people are busy drawing cards. I'm maybe not doing as well as he is. He has a lot in the bank there, even if he hasn't scored them yet. I had better get some popularity on my characters. Make sure that, you know, when Kaiman finally dies, he's worth something. This guy, not so much. But yeah, that's a consideration to have in play, is that once a couple people do buy him, well, maybe it's not such an imperative to buy a leader, to buy troops anymore. Oh, that was the other thing. I was thinking about his seduction style card. I don't remember, the blackmail card that goes to the bottom of the deck. What's up with that? So what's interesting about that is, if that had gone in this cards, you would be able to pull that out. That's a very valuable card. These, you know, unchallenged persuasion attempts. By putting it in the bottom of the deck, it prevents players from being able to pull that out. And unlike the troops, it may not make as much sense to be able to grab that valuable card. That one goes to the sort of catch-up mechanism here of the victory points plus influence. But it's not an entire catch-up point because you could have a lot sitting on the board in terms of popularity that, you know, just isn't being recorded yet. You may not actually have it, but you're not necessarily guaranteed to get it and all, but it's likely that you will, especially if it's on your leader. Paying much attention to these, but yeah, these clearly state the one of. These are very useful. People should definitely have these because there's only one copy of the main play aid, which has more information on it. But So I got through the rest of the players. If you think that I'm like always going through the news, I'm not. It's just as soon as I get to the last player, I move the remaining news cards up here. There's almost always just one left. I think it's the way it goes because 3 are automatic. This one, fairly likely to happen, but if it doesn't, it's promoted. So that's player 4. Player 5 draws it. Player 6 gets a chance at this. So chances are one of these 2 triggers off. We may have had a time when 2 cards went on top. We have never cleared the entire deck, so it's not like I'm running through this because of mistaking the rules or particularly mobile die rolls. What I am noticing, sign up. I'm trying to remember where sign up is. But I seem to think this one, and again, Amphipolis, that's going to be an island. I don't know how much that would piss the Persians off. Some of the other things are kind of those Persian-aligned islands, but I think sign up is right in Asia Minor, if I'm not mistaken, in which case I could easily be mistaken, in which case it should definitely piss the Persians off. Just in case you get into this situation where you're in that second deck, and there are still Persian wars that could happen, just to add to the threat. As it is, Athens is going to be able to take advantage of some things that maybe they really couldn't do. Now, that may allow Athens to grow and to fight wars and stuff, that the game would kind of suck if it got into this situation, because Sparta is gone forever now. And of course, we are going to have the Peloponnesian Wars at some point, so that's not too terrible. I'm going to break here for a bit because I'm going into the assembly phase, and I don't know what I'm going to do in terms of the wars. We're entering into a kind of interesting situation here in the assembly phase. The 2 have-not players, who aren't real have-nots, they're the have-less players in terms of political power. I've kind of decided to band together and say, you know what? You've got to give one of us one of the 3 positions anyway. And we're not just going to buckle under and bid with you. We're, going to force you to spend $2 to pass whatever you want. We both have Ecclesia cards, same root, which allow us, I don't know any Greek basically, which allow either of them to veto in and create a different bidding situation, but that doesn't really help much because he still controls the order of voting, which means the only thing we can really do is assassinate the Archon, and assassination has risks, So far we've been kind of happy with the situation, but we want to start draining his cash, start making him pay. Now, what that's going to mean is he's probably going to start assigning strategos elsewhere, but they've kind of banded together in the hope of shaking things up a little bit. I don't think it's going to help at all. Which means he's kind of in a troubled position, but he's gonna suggest Archon Polemarch. Now, if this fails, that pairing can still be done by just moving the Basilius around, which it's the same problem as in Republic of Rome with 2 councils. You can usually arrange, a pair of players who control enough power to pass things through can pretty much arrange that the election goes the way they want, which is why I don't really worry too much on the mechanisms of the elections as describing what the political deals are going on are, because that's where the meat really is. It really does come down to negotiation. It feels like you might be able to use the mechanics to get away with something interesting, and every now and then you can, but generally it's the peoples with the votes who get to control what happens. Kind of a big deal. I think you're actually allowed, or I know you're actually allowed to buy from the faction treasury when you want to buy votes. I don't think that's the case in Republic of Rome. I'm assuming it's not in Carthage. I kind of played Republic of Rome rules there. I don't remember with Founding Fathers, but that means this isn't something you have to plan for and have obvious and available. This can come from your secret cache, which is a lot more flexible. Now, there's only one round of voting, so you only have one shot at it. And that's the same across all of them. But anyway, I've got 4 votes in favor of my proposal, and I'm facing 6 against. I would have to put $3 in to get it to pass. I do want it to pass. Nobody's ecclesiating it, so we'll just pay the money. It's part of the cost of doing business as I see it. I don't really care too much where the strategos go. I have to have an eye on victory points. So I'm actually assigning 1 to each of the non-voting factions, which kind of guarantees that this would go down, except I'm going to hand 1 off to him as a bribe. Pure and simple. This is spreading the wealth. It's wealth that I can't really take. I don't have an extra office, etc. It's not worth me spending money. It's worth me giving that little bribe. I could have given it here instead. Again, not worth vetoing, because there are plenty of other places that I could move and create a different set of players, of characters who are being nominated. Just by moving 1 position, that changes the whole thing. So there's no reason to try to use special, the Ecclesias cards to try to change the vote here. The only thing I could do is try to convince him to vote against it in the hopes that we could take more of the strategos. If we vote down all proposals that are outside. Now, he might be interested in that, honestly, because we do have the votes, and if he wants to push it through with bucks, well, he can do that. But the problem is, if he does want to do that, he can do it leaving him without a bribe. So I'm going to say he's only willing to try to keep pressuring the government on a 1. And he does not get that choice, or he doesn't make that decision. So the vote's going to pass, and these strategos are going to be. Unfortunately, there's little or no reason to pursue multiple wars again. There really doesn't seem to be much reason for it at all. There's no restriction on what you can pile up in the inactives in this game. And, this is a colonization. It's totally a war of choice. This one would be an invasion that I have some questions about why it's there. But, the truth of the matter is, I see no reason to bring these additional strategos around. I don't have much in the way of troops. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to send the Polemarch and him. That'll guarantee me enough votes, unless he wants to spend money to try to prevent the war, to be able to complete it. And then we end up with, let's see. Oh, actually, we could send more people. We may want to, because we're not building any forces, is the thing. So we have currently 3 extra troops, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We could actually add a couple more points of value, which means we could send, say, him with his 5, and that would get us some more. And blue's doing okay, but not great. So it wouldn't be a terrible thing. Yeah, we may want to suggest him. So what was I saying? 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But this is only a 1. That gives me a +7. How's the die roll on +7? +7, let's say I roll very low. I still get a victory. That's not bad. We'll do the +7. Chances are we'll get a better result. Although somebody might die, and that wouldn't be good. And yes, it passes. And then things are going to be closed. There's just no other business to take. Now, if he had a strategos, he could Ecclesias in to try to generate another war. It probably wouldn't work. So now that's 11-18. We get a victory. I guess I'm going to give out the influence now that I know that I was doing that wrong. as well as the popularity. This war actually costs me money. It's a colonization. I've pulled most of the cards already in order. Now remember, people bought troops, so the chance of a coup succeeding is very low right now, so people are kind of hesitant to do one. They feel like they're going to need more troops in order to instigate one. If anybody has 2 in their hand, they'll do it, but I can't see anybody with 1 doing it. I've associated most of the cards with the players, but now I'm up to a hard choice for red. Well, first of all, this is out of question. Unless we return to democracy, it's absolutely useless. And whatever. I have the choice to grab a farmer, and that's cool. You know, getting more people is great. But it's less great than you would expect. It's not an aristocrat, so it doesn't really power up my hand much. The blackmail is a nice card. If I take the blackmail, however, that leaves him with the democracy card. Yeah, we'll do that. My worry was, if this wasn't here, if these were my only choices or something similar, I would be leaving him with only something he could not draw, and then he would get to start drawing for a legal card, in which case he might get something cool that nobody knows about, where everybody knows what his options are to some extent, or at least a number of people have a pretty good idea, or he could even get another aristocrat, which could change this voting situation in his favor, which would really suck. The actuality is he got an aristocrat, so that situation is going to change anyway. I forgot to say something I wanted to say, so I have to come back and say it. So he ended up taking the democracy and then having the ostracism card and then having to throw it away immediately. Because he has too many cards, and that one's obviously useless. And someone knows he has that useless card, so might as well ditch it. An important thing to note, we're into the second deck here. These cards remain though. They remain as discards. They don't get shuffled back in. That's an important thing. I immediately had to look that up because my first impression was, oh yeah, you shuffle them in, of course. You know, because that's what you do with the news cards. You can't do it with these, and there's a good reason for that, which is if you shuffled them in, all the troops that are in here in particular would no longer be easily available. Now what it means is there's still, like, you know, statesmen who are going to end up way too young for who they are. They probably, you know, one way you could look at them is if they don't get picked at all is that they just never were born. But instead what you're probably looking at is the next generation or whatever, if people are buying them out of here, because their age is, unlike in Founding Fathers, it's going to be based on when they're actually played, so they don't, you know, show up with an age there. I don't think there's going to be a coup, which means I'll be loading this up, but I may be back if I'm lying there.